But we'll introduce her anyway. Let's welcome Lori back up on the stage. Elders Dave, Olive, Barney, and Lori. Elders like loud introduction. I introduced an elder one time. Was it Saskatchewan I was working? And I introduced the elder, and I was going on about the elder and doing my thing. And she looks at me and she says, I feel like a wrestler. She says, funny. I feel like a wrestler. So cute. Look at these beautiful elders. Hello. There's Dave right there. Right on. Yeah. There's Lori. There's my dear friend Barney. My wife was here and she knows Barney very well, so it's always so wonderful to see our elders here with us. All right, as they take position. Now let's give them a massive round of applause. Come on, this is our closing elders panel. Elders, I'm not sure if you sat together before, decided who was going in certain order, but I'll leave that up to you to decide. Now we're pulling straws, or I'm not sure. But we have 1 hour for this, so I'm going to turn it over to you. Once one elder's done, we'll just pass that microphone down, or the next elder will just continue. Everybody, I'm turning it over to our beautiful elders to share some thoughts with us. Elders, over to you.
Hello? Bonjour. Je weet de gaordenen, dat is een gast, mag wel geen doen, dus van binnen weet ik dat zie. En zag ik nou dat de baan niet doen. Wie weet kan ik geen waar ik bescheid geven, oké? Wie weet kan ik geen geven, aber het toon aan. Je bent er aan de snap hebben. Wie weet kan de opzet toon de snap hebben. Wie weet kan ik heel gaaf in de baan. Iets in de week gekeken waar. Wie weet Peter know what came on this event, this gathering, among the to me, which can again on and the key game of a stand. If you don't get that energy and that high energy he carries. So I say me thanks to all of you for coming and hearing. Listening to those ones that were, I'm not a note taker myself, I'm poor in that in itself. But I had a lot of familiar experiences that I had with all the presenters facing all those challenges that we have within our communities or other communities I go and visit and hear the same stories. And when I listen to the stories, like Kibat Dungay on Sokam, those are our own stories, and that we about the Shenge is not to Kashaway, the Gawam Dung. There's things that happened to him, things that they have seen, or things that were said to them, and it's very hard. So many of the things that you have, the presenters had shared, for my self-care, and I encourage others within my community as well, in the community, that or if I go elsewhere where I'm invited to go to sweat lodge or ceremonies, I encourage others to come along at different times and sometimes they don't want to go as well. But I still encourage them to come and sit by the fire or anything in that way. Just to support them, no matter whatever struggles they go through. And if each is gonna get in, do we the walking, keep my cycle game on. I tell them once in a while that I was on that road as well. And those are certain things that I had done myself, like that homelessness and having to sleep out there a lot of times. And so some of that is ginamato. Ginamato is I prayed. Nampu kaning ling ginap. I said, when I sketched again, what should I do? Would you help me? And so, yes, I was a drug addict as well. I sold drugs in my community. I did a lot of alcohol. I did a lot of many things my own self and self-harm and that. So I can relate to a lot of the presenters that were here as well. So a lot of my own journey make it home. And through that is like part of the ceremonies. I hear about land-based programming. I hear about sweat lodge. I hear about ceremony. And there's different ones. So there's many. And so when I used to go and pray, and those were the things that came. I didn't see them right away, but they came. I've met a lot of different elders all over. There's the panel that's sitting here, sitting with them as well. I never thought I'd be looked at as an elder. I just thought I look at it as I'm a Shkave was the creator to help others. And once in a while I think about all of us. We're all Shkave. Mava Devetsget, Kishaton Kinabugego. I always think of the great mystery itself, or the great spirit that had made all of this. But along that journey, there was the grandmothers and the grandfathers that came along, that guided us. Sometimes we don't see them. As Laurie and we spoke about in the opening prayer in the morning and closing. Kiao came and Pio. They came also. They watching us. Engaged with they wagon, Kinagunan, but what's doing things that we felt through those presenters that came along. So I really value their stories and carry them. But that's their stories. The part I carry is that they continued their journey. The journey that they're on, that roadway. So I think we went to that in itself. Because I was invited to go to the sweat lodge this weekend. So there's a lot of things that when I go there, and I'll think about the stories or the things that were presented here as well, to acknowledge that over there to the presenters. I'm not good with names, but I can see the face or the one that was presented. I will think of them that way. Even the counselors that were on hand also. So thinking about them as well, and I have to say, Chimigwesha, the Ashkenijik, the youth, about the Matkeyo, the things that they brought here as well. And to share those or hear their voice. That the Creator and the Great Spirit also hears us. And those things will come to be on some things don't just happen instantly, some things do, some don't. The elders, they've always shared about things will come in time. Won't come something that he shared with me because of the struggles I was going through. He said they'll be there, we'll be there the first one, and you'll have that invitation. But the one that's sitting back watching, that I've experienced, watching, to see what you're going to do. So they challenge us in that way, that spirit all the time. That spirit always knows when one is leaving, so that they find their way back home. So I just wanted to share that some of the ones that within your communities of that struggle with all kinds of many things that we challenges that come along. But it's how we get through that, and then having to go see your elders, spiritual leaders within your community, or if they're invited into your community, to go and see them as well. So it's I really thank the last presenter there, because we're challenging there's things that are struggling within our community right now, and we're facing that. How we're going to look at that. And yeah, we're up to Ganag, he's up now, and when they Kabito na what the settler had brought the language, the English language, their way of life. We already had our own way of life, and we struggled with that. We struggle with that within our own communities of the ones that are struggling. All these certain things that were brought, we fall into that. Kashayan gave when we come here like this, and the things that we're going to go face is that we're coming home. We come home to ourselves. We come home to all of us to support each other to what we need to have to look at. And it's very hard to look at self because of sometimes it's the fear that we carry. The fear that we don't want to let something go that's controlled us. It's always in our mind. Our mind, we can change our mind also, but having to have that faith in doing that, and the hope that we can go through our recovery. But I think my 4 minutes is up.
Are we? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Are we on the questions now, or what are we doing right at the last one?
Yeah, you're sharing your thoughts about the event.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess just to introduce myself first. I've been introducing myself for the opening prayers as well as Kwa and the Give Prayer. Through my journey, my name has changed, and so has my clan. But I introduced myself as that because that's who I was when I first started my healing journey. So I'll just introduce my clan now, which I've been carrying for a while, and that's the Wapshkegigik. And that's White Hawk, Spirit Hawk. And that Spirit Hawk gives me the understanding, the teaching about family dysfunction. And I'm still working within that. My story is adoption. I stayed within my own community. So that was a whole realm of different things. The family that I was adopted into, my mother was a residential school survivor. She attended both schools down in Brantford. Mushmore, and the other one. Didn't know that though. Didn't know why life was the way it was, but also saw it as being normal. So with the alcoholism and the violence that took place in my home, I saw that in other homes in the community. So it was normal. I didn't know until later on that it was normal to us, but not to others. So my adoptive father passed away when I was 10 from alcohol-related cirrhosis, and my adoptive mother passed away when I was 19 from cancer. So I started drinking when I was 13, and that carried into my adult life. Met my partner when I was 19, had our first child when I was 20. We are now going into our 41st anniversary this year. And it wasn't easy. We had ups and downs because we both brought our baggage into the relationship. So we have 3 grown children now. We have 6 grandchildren. But there was a lot of work that we had to do. I'm going into my 28th year of sobriety. And I remember the day that I made that decision. We were ending ball season, and we had a ball banquet. And it was off the reserve, so it was a big ball banquet that we had because our team was involved in an off-reserve group. Anyway, I remember sitting there and everybody ordered the rounds, and I had the beer in my hand, and in my mind I said, this is going to be my last beer. I drank it, I put it on the table, and I said, okay, I'm going home. And that was it. But I remember what it felt like when those Thursday nights came. The pacing, because you had to find something else to do. That's what we did. We played ball, and then we drank after. That was the party. Or then the hockey. Hubby played hockey. So we had to find something else to do. What we did was we found and needed to find mentors because we wanted to find out who we were. Who are we? We never got that growing up. We didn't know what culture was. The only culture thing I knew was our powwow in the community. Once a year. That's all I knew. But I loved the drum. I loved hearing the drum. I felt that drum in my heart. So that's what we went looking for. And we had to look outside of our community because we didn't have anything in the community. So I'm very grateful to those ones that took us under their wing. And that's where my healing started. And realizing all the intergenerational trauma, all the multi-generational trauma, all those traumas that I experienced myself, sexual abuse, the inability to grieve, because my mother didn't know how to grieve. All those things, those unsafe places that I'd been put in, and having to learn as a small child, 4 or 5 years old, how to look after myself, because the parents weren't there. But I also recognized that my mother was a very, very hard worker. She was an apple picker, she worked in the tobacco field, so that meant she had to leave early in the morning. My dad was off working somewhere, or that's what I was told. So I was at home by myself at 4 or 5 years old, getting myself up, getting ready for school, feeding myself, making sure. They taught me how to read the clock so I knew what time it was, because I had to know what time the bus was coming. So 4 or 5 years old. What would happen today, right? So I grew up with a lot of anger. I grew up with a lot of pain, a lot of hurt. But not knowing that's what it was until I started to look at it. And that's what I have to do. You have to look at self. You have to understand why the behaviors, why the reactions, why am I doing this, why am I doing that, why am I making these choices. So it was when I started to look at those things and understanding the emotions that I carried, and then finding that way to be able to release them. And forgiveness. Forgiveness is huge. I forgave my mother. I forgave my father. I forgave all those ones that hurt me. It wasn't because to tell them that it was okay what you did, no. It was for me to release myself so I could move forward. They still had work to do for themselves. A lot of them had passed away, so I couldn't face them anyway. However, in order for me to move forward, I had to release myself. So I did that in various ways through our own traditional practices, whether it's sweat lodge, fasting, ceremonies. I was able to, and it was funny how that happened. I had my main mentor. We were at a conference, a language conference in the Sioux, and she ended up turning me over to another teacher. I didn't know that was happening. She just walked out of the room and I was left with somebody that I only just met. This healer I've been working with now for 10 years. She's the one that opened the whole world up of spirit to me. And that's what I do now. A year ago, or even, maybe not even that long ago, I had no idea that I'd be doing what I'm doing today. I gave my trust in Creator and my spirit helpers and my guides in May of last year. I retired from a full-time job with our community, and it was advocacy for healing coordinator, so I worked with people, and that's where I came full circle with my mother having been a residential school survivor. I worked with historic trauma. I worked with residential schools. I worked with the 60s group. I worked with day school survivors. And it gave me a whole different picture of those ones that I was always afraid of, those ones that I was told to stay away from because of their anger, of how they carried themselves. When I heard their stories, sometimes I was the first one that they told what happened to them. And to see them cry, to see that little child in them cry because of what they experienced, gave me a whole new perspective. And it helped me in my journey as well. The bravery, the courage that they had to come forward and to share. So for me, last year, I'm saying, I worked with the band for 13 years, then I went off the reserve for 13 years. It was almost a common theme here, 13. Off the reserve, then I came back to the reserve in 2009 because my heart pulled me back. And it was culture, and I worked as cultural wellness coordinator, I worked as cultural development coordinator, then it turned into the advocacy for healing. So, May, so many signs were coming to me. Change, there's going to be change, and through my healing, I have now the ability, because of the gifts that surfaced, because of the healing I was able to do, my giftedness came out, and I am very connected to spirits. They told me it was time to retire, and my fear came out, what am I going to live on? I'm giving up a full-time job if I retire. So I came to know, you know what? The spirits tell you to do something, you do it. So I did. And it was only a 2-week notice, and I was gone. All I said was, okay, if I'm to do the work that you want me to do, I want to, I am, this is my purpose, but you gotta look after me. You have to look after me because I have to look after family. I'm telling you, from May last year to now, I have never been so busy. But it's doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And it was through my healing that I was able to find out what that was. So what I'm doing now is, I do work with SOHAC in Owen Sound. I go in there once a week as their visiting traditional healer. I'm going to be going to Cambridge as well, to their SOHAC office. I have just received an offer from our Friendship Center in Onsana and Wikwinong that I'm going to be going there once a week as a traditional healer. And lived experience and the gifts that come is definitely nothing to shake your stick at. Because when you embrace who you are and understand that everything that you have gone through that was so difficult in your life, to know that there's gifts that came out of that. And when you can embrace those gifts and understand those lessons that came with that, that's your life journey. And you use those gifts. So that's what I'm doing now, I'm using those gifts. And just being very thankful and grateful to my parents, even though through all the hardship as a child, they gave me the gifts as that child to be able to look after myself at 19 when I didn't have a mom and dad anymore. But they gave me those gifts to be able to do that. So even in your hardship, look at the bigger picture. What are the lessons? What are you being taught? Because it's something you need, and you need to use it. So basically, that's what has been my life in a nutshell. We used to party together. Yeah. And some of those guys over there. Who'd have thought we're sitting here now? Thank you, Rich.